Well, I mean, I of course think that Malala Joya has fought an incredible struggle, and she really deserves all the support that we can give her. And I think that where the women's movement has gone really wrong is in partnering with the state in their countries, rather than with feminist movements on the ground. And I would put Malala Joya as part of kind of the grassroots feminist activism that exists in Afghanistan and existed for a long time. People forget that there was a women's movement in Afghanistan before the Soviet occupation, before the Afghan civil wars, before the rise of the Taliban, and through the Taliban period. And I think where feminist organizations in the US and in Canada have gone wrong is not in partnering with those feminist movements and rather putting their support behind the state in an interventionist project, in an imperialist project, and then seeking to build allies and alliances with women's groups in Afghanistan through state funding, through state support. And what I would argue what that does is not only do feminists here become complicit in a state agenda and imperialism, but they then also partner with women's organizations in Afghanistan who also are amenable to this kind of Western intervention in their country. And that then further marginalizes those feminists in Afghanistan and feminist groups who have opposed the war. So I think this has been very, very dangerous. In terms of the other example, the books like reading Lolita in Tehran and a whole kind of series of them, and Irshad Manji, I put her in the same kind of category. I think, I don't know about the author reading Lolita in Tehran because I haven't got to that book yet. I'm working on it. Yes, I know, but I don't know what her background is. So I will use instead Manji, for example, because I know much more of the context and where she's located. I think it's important to realize that, immigrants in this country, women of color, and particularly Muslim women, have for a very long time been discriminated against, are marginalized. Immigrants face racism in the labor market, in access to education. And I think the war on terror became an opening for them to find acceptance and to advance their careers in a way that was not possible before. But the only opening that was available to them was to actually become this kind of what I call play the propaganda role, become defenders of kind of Canadian state project, US state project, and they have done that. They have, as feminists we say, oh, there's been a closing down of space of feminist issues in the media, which is true, but there has been an incredible opening up of space for those feminists who want to represent the kind of racialized, demonized version of Islam that we see. And I think that these women certainly are using the opportunity that's been open to them. But for feminists who are doing anti-racist politics, that space isn't there. So I think that in terms of just attacking these individual women or criticizing these individual women, I think is a little bit limited. I think we need to look at the kind of conditions that have produced this kind of collaborationist politics. And I think that the racial discrimination, the racial marginalization, and the lack of opportunities, the lack of recognition of their education, their skills, has been a serious factor, and it continues to be that. And the only way today that a Muslim woman can advance in mainstream is A, by attacking the other Muslims, and either presenting herself as a moderate, or by going to the extreme that Irshad Manji has done. That those are the options that are open. At the same time that Muslim women who wear the hijab, for example, have found it much harder to find employment after 9/11. They're reporting all kinds of increased discrimination, right? So I think, criticizing the individual women is important, but also looking at the structural factors also becomes very, very important.